A set A consists of 7 consecutive odd integers. 7 consecutive odd integers. Consecutive also odd also. What does that mean? So, for example, I don't know, 3, 5, 7, 9, 11, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Right? These are 7 consecutive odd integers. Of course, which ones I don't know. Are these the numbers, or is it 103, 1000 something, 1 million something, or maybe also negative? I don't know. All I know right now is that they are consecutive odd integers. They could be negative also. Okay. If the sum of the 5 largest integers is negative 185. Okay. All right. The sum of the 5 largest is negative. That tells me that the 7 numbers are negative. We're dealing with negative odd integers. Okay. Because the sum of 5 largest is negative. So, right. The numbers must be negative only. Can I have a situation like, let's say, -5, -3, -1, +1, and then 3, and then 5, and then 7? Well, no, because then in this case, the sum will be very small. The sum is 7 here. Or sorry, sum of all 7 is 7. Sum of 5 would be somewhat bigger, but overall it won't get to negative 185. Right? For the sum of 5 largest numbers to be such a big negative number, all the numbers would be negative. That is one thing I can understand at this point. What is the sum of the 5 smallest integers? I'm given the sum of the 5 largest. Out of those 7, I have to figure out the sum of the 5 smallest. Now, one thing that I have purposely not done till this point, I will do now, is, like I said initially, answer choices are also a valuable resource. So before I start solving, I go through the options: negative 165, negative 175, or 95, 205, 250. Negative. The sum of the 5 largest is given. I have to figure out the sum of the 5 smallest. I notice that 2 options are on one side of negative 185, 3 options are on the other side, on the number line. I chose my word very carefully, side. I didn't say greater, lower yet. Because with negative, there's a slight confusion, which one is greater, which one is smaller. With positive numbers, I know 160 is smaller than 180, for example. But with negative numbers, I just want to be doubly sure. So 2 things I want to do here. First, I want to be clear about which of these numbers are greater than negative 185, which ones are smaller. So help me out here. Which number is smaller than negative 185? Negative 184 or negative 186? Which one is smaller? Which direction? Negative 186 is smaller or negative 184 is smaller? Basically, negative numbers, negative 1, negative 2, negative 3, they keep getting smaller and smaller and smaller. Right? Okay. So that is one thing I understand, that compared with negative 185, negative 185 is greater than negative 186. That much is sorted. Right? So, and similarly on the other side, negative 184 is greater than negative 185. Next question. Just based on what the question has given us and what it's asking, can I eliminate any answers? The sum of the 5 largest is negative 185. So the sum of the 5 smallest will be more or less than negative 185. Just in terms of more or less, no values yet. 5 largest ka sum is given some value. The sum of the 5 smallest will be smaller, will be a lower value. This much is clear. So now, lower value. Now we use this understanding from negative 185, I have to go lower. So which direction do I have to go in? I have to go lower than negative 185. Right? That means I'll go to the left on the number line or to the right on the number line. Let's think of it this way. To go lower, I have to go to the left, right? So overall, the magnitude will increase. From 185, I'll go to 186, 187, 188. Yes, Kunal. Yes. You selected A as your answer. Now you yourself realize A and B cannot be the answer. Negative 165 and negative 175 are anyway greater. Right? Forget calculations and all that. Just logically, the answer has to be less than negative 185. Anyway, A and B are rejected. Straight away rejected. This is very, very powerful and very useful and very important even. Such sanity checks. Based on calculations, we might make mistakes, we might get confused. Array plus karna hai, minus karna hai. Or array when I was taking equation on the other side, I made a mistake. That is human. That can happen with anyone. But if you don't even realize that, oh man, for 5 largest, the sum was this value. For 5 smallest, how can the sum be greater? If you're not even asking that question, then you are not doing quantitative reasoning. Then you are just doing what an Excel can do. This is the difference between you and an Excel. An Excel can't catch its own mistakes. We can. We can realize, array, hold on. How can the answer be bigger? Right? And also to realize that negative 165 is greater. That's the first thing. And then to realize that from 5 largest, when I'm going to 5 smallest, the sum will further reduce. It will not increase. A and B anyway can't be the answer. So I strongly recommend that we apply such, I'm calling them sanity checks. If we can, it definitely makes sense to apply them at the beginning. Who knows, in some questions, I might be able to eliminate 4 wrong answers and be done with things. Or even by eliminating 2 answers, my confidence level has certainly gone up. Would I still need to do all the steps that I would have anyway had to do? Yes, probably. So it's not like this saved me time. So you might be thinking, what's the point? Anyway, I have to do those steps. So I've actually wasted time. No, we've not wasted time. We've developed confidence. It's worth it. Right? If it's a trade-off between a few seconds and confidence, I always go for confidence. That's what I recommend for you guys also. Right? And who knows, maybe for some question I could eliminate 4 answers and therefore save a lot of time. So certainly worth it. Plus, for me to explain it took a long time. If you're comfortable with numbers and uncomfortable with largest, smallest, it's actually just a matter of a few seconds. You realize that A and B can never be the answer. So certainly worth it. Okay. How do we go about it now? Well, one approach is I'm giving all the 7 integers variables. Let's say X is the smallest odd integer in the set. Smallest one. Negative, positive is one matter. Anyway, X is the smallest. So the largest will be X plus 12 by this logic. Right? I'm treating X as an odd integer. So that's why X plus 2 will also be odd. If 3 is odd, 3 plus 2, 5 will be odd. By adding plus 2 plus 4, I'll maintain odd numbers, consecutive odd numbers. X is the smallest one. What am I given? The sum of the largest 5, these are the largest 5, their sum is negative 185. I have to figure out the sum of the smallest 5. So largest 5 can help me figure out the value of X. X is negative 45. Then sum of the smallest 5, basically these 5 guys here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. These 5 guys here, right? That's again 5x plus 20. X is negative 45. I plug that in. I get the overall sum is negative 205. Not negative 195, which was a very common answer somehow. Negative 205. Now I'm done with one approach. Like I've said, one question to ask is, how can I make this approach more efficient? So here also I'm thinking the same thing. How can I make this approach more efficient? I noticed one thing at least, that I did not need to calculate the value of X. The largest 5 values would have had 5x, and the smallest 5 would have had 5x also. So once I figured out 5x is negative 225, I could have straight away jumped to 5x, plugging in the value of 5x. These steps were extra. I didn't have to first divide by 5 and then multiply by 5. Waste of time. Right? These are the kind of things I want you to analyze every time for every question. So that next time the chances of you doing the same thing, same mistake again are lower. I'll call it a mistake. Even if your answer is correct, if anything cost you time, it's a mistake. If you could save that, if you could avoid it, it's definitely worth it. It's not just about time, it's also about mental energy. So this was thinking about how could I make the same approach more efficient. Next, I'm thinking what other approach can I use? So I'll discuss 2 more approaches here. One, now we'll use the concept of averages. And is this from the chapter of averages? Was there a heading like averages? Was the term average or mean ever used? No. But still, we can use the concept of averages here. Basically, average of consecutive numbers is the middle number, or the average of the 2 middle numbers, depending on how many elements there are. If there are odd number of elements, then the average is the middle number. How does that help me here? Well, the average and the sum are related, right? So for the 5 largest numbers, I'm given that the sum is negative 185. So the average would be divided by 5. The average also for these 5 numbers would be the middle number. These are consecutive numbers. That tells me that the middle number of the largest 5 is negative 37. Since these are negative numbers, I'll be very, very careful. As I go to the left, the numbers will keep getting smaller. From negative 37, I'll go to negative 39. From negative 39, I'll go to negative 41. Now, I can do 2 things here. I can continue this way. From negative 41, I go to negative 43, negative 43, negative 45. And then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I could just add up these numbers and be done with things. I think that's absolutely fine. Right? So 43 plus 37, 80. 41 plus 39, 80. 80 plus 80, 160. Plus 45, 205, and a minus sign. Right? That's one way. Or here also I can apply the same logic in reverse. This whole average logic. Now I have to figure out the sum of the smallest 5 numbers. For the smallest 5, now the middle number is negative 41. That middle number is the average. So what will be the sum of these 5 numbers? Average times 5. Negative 41 times 5 also gives me the same answer, negative 205. This is one more approach. Let me discuss a third approach. So these are the 7 numbers. I've used the variable x again. Now, before I get into any calculations, any solving, let me just understand better what's going on. I'm given the sum of these 5, the largest 5. I've been asked the sum of the smallest 5. Between the smallest 5 and the largest 5, these middle 3 numbers are common. They are there in both the places. So they are not going to change the sum. They are there anyway. Which numbers are going to change the sum? these largest two numbers are getting replaced with the smallest two numbers. Right? X and X plus 2 are replacing X plus 10 and X plus 12. Or think of it this way, X is replacing X plus 10, X plus 2 is replacing X plus 12. Why am I doing that? Basically, from X plus 10, we are going to X. Basically, number is reducing by 10. Similarly, from X plus 12, I'm going to X plus 2. Again, reducing by 10. Overall, reducing by 20. So I have to reduce negative 185 by 20. That means negative 185 minus 20. Right? The sum of the 5 smallest integers would be 20 less than negative 185. So the sum would be negative 205. This way also we get to the same answer. Okay, 2 questions at this point. One, anyway, is this question clear? I think that would anyway be clear. But more importantly, are you starting to get a hang of what I mean by 1, making the same approach more efficient, and 2, figuring out other approaches? Are you starting to get a hang of this? That's my only question. How to think about making the same approach more efficient after you're done. And second, trying to think of multiple approaches. I would like you to do this for every question that you solve. Each and every question. Both these things. That's the fundamental thinking behind our quant course. That's what we believe is the way to get better. Instead of thinking, see, what happens often is, oh wow, that approach was so great. But that doesn't help you. Unless you force yourself to start thinking in that direction today, you will never reach a stage where you can also answer in a cool way, right? In a way that you really like somewhere. Anyone who, for example, is able to apply logic has gone through this process. They have developed that logic over a period of time for it to then come naturally to them, right? So for you to become natural, initially, you will need to go through a stage where you're uncomfortable, where it's not coming naturally, but then you need to force yourself to go through that. If anyway you move on from solving one question to the next, without ever trying these things, you will never, ever become more comfortable.